Okay, welcome back. Um, let's go ahead and load up our game here. Okay, so where we left off, we were we are in Sedanin, and pass that wall there. We can't, or we have spoken
You
to
like to
everyone.
dance close to the fire, don't you? You like to dance close to the fire, don't
Okay, we have spoken to everyone in Arl's trade house, and just about
Speak quickly,
exhausted
Outlander, or go away.
exhausted everyone's dialogue uh, in the Aros Trade House. So in this video, I want to go ahead and we're going to explore Sedanin and see what Sedanin has to offer. So let's just go ahead and walk around here and see exactly what's going on. Let's start with this one. Okay, it says wooden door to Sedanin. It's Elderfire's house and has a lock level of 25. I really don't want to lockpick anything because if you remember in the last video and perhaps the video before that, we talked
you? Let's
about
hear it.
having a high moral compass and following the laws and whatnot of Morrowind, and that's kind of what I want to do. Um, Perhaps there will be some kind of unknown reward. Um, so let's check out this door here. Wooden door to Voldenius Nucius house, lock level 30. Okay. And this is a lock level 45, and this is the Census and Excise Warehouse. Now, some of you might say, I don't think there's anything over here, and I believe this also has a lock level on it. Yes, it's level 10. Okay. And some of you might say that that the lock picking
Can we hurry this along?
is kind of is part of the game, but it's something I don't want to dive into. Okay, what is this house here? This is okay. So this is one that we can go into finally. It's a wooden door to Terrorice Gervain's house. Okay, a small residence here, but seems very cozy. Let's go ahead and speak with Miss
I'm
Gervain,
waiting.
who seems to be very busy. Okay, she says, "Well, hello, Jericho. I'm Terrorice Gervain. This is Sedanin, swamp fever capital of the world. I suppose you're wondering what's going on here. I can tell you where the services are. There aren't many, and I can tell you the latest rumors, unless you've already heard them. Let's see if she's got anything new. I've heard that the local tax collector, Processus Vitilius, is missing. No surprise, really. He wasn't well liked around here. Okay, so Processus Vitilius uh, may have been kidnapped, or perhaps just got drunk and just lost himself in the woods or something, uh, or could have been attacked. There's no other options to tell us about this missing character, so perhaps we'll find out later. In the last video I was asking about Solsthim. Let's... Terrible place, because she also says that it's not a very popular place, and we learned that it's way north and you must take a boat to Cool, from Cool, to, I believe there's a place called Fort Frostmoth, or that could have been something else. Um, let's see if she can tell us anything different about the Dunmer people. Okay, so no, it's the exact same thing the other person had said previously. Okay, so basically this is just one of your run-of-the-mill characters here. And just for, we're not going to steal anything, but just, let's just see what they keep in these sacks. Okay, so she has an empty sack. Let's see what she keeps in this basket. Saltress. Alright, wonder what that is. Perhaps it's a plant, or it says saltress. I'm thinking salts, but it doesn't really look like salt. It looks like a plant. We have scrib jelly, which I believe a scrib is some type of crab or small armored creature, from what I remember. Scuttle. I do not know what that is. Bitter green petals. I'm guessing these kind of look like alchemy ingredients. Bone meal. Sounds like something from a skeleton. Comberry. Perhaps a berry. Gold cannet. And hound meat. Okay. Let's see what she has in this barrel here. A lit hide. Ash yam. And we're going through these because I really do want to dive into the alchemy and understand alchemy for what it is. Of course, you're probably like, well, why don't you go read a book on alchemy or something? But we'll start here first. We'll start with Morrowind alchemy, and we'll move on to the more advanced stuff later. Here's black anther, chokeweed, and drew wax or draw sounds cool. I'm gonna say draw wax, and that has a value of 100 with fortified strength. So that's some expensive stuff right there. Draw wax weighs 0.2, whatever. I don't know what the if it's grams or pounds or kilos or what, but weighs 0.2 units. 0.2 units, a value of $100, 100 gold. Not too sure if it's called gold or drakes. If you remember last time we read a note in Arl's Trade House that talked about the currency, a certain currency being called drakes. But I, excuse me, I opened my menu here. My currency is gold, so it doesn't say drakes. Perhaps it's the same thing. Okay, so chokeweed again. We have some heather, which I believe that is a herb, and trauma root. So there's some more saltress, black anther, cork bulb root. Okay, so these, I'm guessing these are generally her spices and whatnot. Of course, she has plates and dishes and whatnot, and wood you cannot select. Okay, so this is predominantly a very poor individual. So let's see what else is in Seidanin. So this is by no means a bungler's bane, a well-off place. I mean, as you can tell here, I mean, there is seems to be some kind of
What assistance do you need?
small pond of swamp water, and then they have the peasant shacks, I guess, if you will. Okay, so this place has Endril Rathyon's shack, and he put a lock level on it for 15. Here we have, okay, we can go on this one. Foreign Gilnith's shack. Okay, so let's talk to Foreign Gilnith, who is a Dunmer, obviously, and he he just says, "What do you want? Why have you come into my home and disturbed me? Can't you see I'm already extremely poor and just so just so honest with the dialogue. What do you want?" Okay, so the only option here is Solstein, which is interesting. So let's ask him what he knows about that. Okay, so he says the same thing. It's not a very popular place, and there's not really much you can talk to him about.
I will listen out.
And this individual, oh, we have our first book. Okay, and this individual here looks much poorer than the last one that we've seen. So let's check some of his things here. Here he has a bottle, which is empty. We're going to read A Dance in Fire, Chapter 6. We're going to read that. And he has two empty barrels, some bottles, jugs, a sack with some soltris in it. He's got his dining equipment. What is this yellow here? He's got some resin, gold cannons. So he's got some spices or herbs. He has some eggs, small kwama eggs. And he has a chest which contains possibly all his money. It's 5 gold. And a basket for perhaps collecting herbs, or I could see even using fishing, putting it at the end of a stream, or a small channel in a stream or creek or something, and catching a fish. Anyways, so let's go ahead and read this book here. Okay, so we open the book and we get a increased mercantile skill, which is increased to 6, so it's from 5 to 6 now. So that just tells us that this book is going to be about some type of mercantile skills, something related to mercantile skill. Okay. It says A Dance in Fire, Chapter 6 by Walhin Jarth. Dukamascati sat down, listening to Leotis Juris. The clerk could hardly believe how fat his former colleague at Lord Atreus's building commission had become. The quaint aroma of the roasted meat dish before Scotti melted away. All the other sounds and textures of Pratala Hall vanished all around him, as if nothing else existed but the vast form of Juris. Scotti did not consider himself an emotional man, but he felt a tide flow over him at the sight and sound of the man whose badly written letters had been the guideposts that carried him from the imperial city back in early Frostfall. "Where have you been?" Juris demanded again. "I told you to meet me in Valenesti weeks ago." "I was there weeks ago," Scotty stammered, too surprised to be indignant. I do not know. I've heard of an indignant. I do not know what that word means, or how to say it. Okay. "I got your note to meet you in Athe, and I went there, but the Khajiit had burned it to the ground. Somehow I found my way with the refugees in another village, and someone there told me that you had been killed." "And you believed that right away?" Jur sneered. "The fellow seemed very well informed about you. He was a clerk from Lord Vanek's building commission named Reglius, and he had said that you had also just suggested that he come down to Valenwood to profit from the war. Oh, yes, said Juris after thinking a moment. I recall the name now. Well, it's good for business to have two representatives from Imperial Building Commissions here. We just need to all coordinate our bids, and all should be well. Reglius is dead, said Scotty, but I have his contracts from Lord Vannick's commission. Even better, gasped Juris, impressed. I never knew you were such a ruthless competitor. Demut. Decumus Scotti. Yes, this could certainly improve our position with this Sylvanar. Have I introduced you to Bost here? Scotty had only dimly aware of the Bosmer's presence at the table with Juris, which was surprising given that the Mer's girth nearly equaled his dining companion. The clerk nodded to Bost coldly, still numb and confused. It had not left his mind that only an hour earlier Scotty had intended to petition the Sylvanar for safe passage to the border back to Cyrodiil. The thought of doing business with Juris after all, of profiting from Valenwood war with elsewhere, and now the second one with the Somerset Isle, seemed like something happening to another person. Your colleague and I were talking about the Sylvanar, said Bast, putting down the leg of mutton he had been gnawing on. I don't suppose you've heard about his nature. A little, but nothing very specific. I've got the impression that he's very important and very peculiar. He's the representative of the people, legally, physically, and emotionally, explained Juris, a little annoyed at his new partner's lack of common knowledge. When they're healthy, so is he. When they're mostly females, so is he. When the cry for food or trade or an absence of foreign interference, he feels it too and makes laws accordingly. In a way, he's a despot, but he's the people's despot. That sounds, said Scotty, searching for the appropriate word, like bunk. Perhaps it is, shrugged Bast, but he has many rights as the voice of the people, including the granting of foreign building and trade contracts. It's not important whether you believe us. Just think of the Sylvanar as being like one of your mad emperors like Pelagius. So okay, let's stop there. So Pelagius, I wonder if Pelagius is, or we talked about the town or province of Pelagiad. I wonder if that has anything to do with Pelagius. Okay, let's continue. The problem facing us now is that since Valenwood is being attacked on all sides, the Sylvanar's aspect is now one of distrust and fear of foreigners. The one hope of his people, and thus of the Sylvanar himself, is that the Emperor will intervene and stop the war. Will he? Asked Scotty. You know as well as we do that the Emperor has not been himself lately. Juris helped himself to Reglius's satchel and put out the blank contracts. Who knows what he'll choose to do or not to do? That reality is not our concern, but these blessings from the late good Sir Reglius made our job much simpler. They discussed how they would represent themselves to the Sylvanar into the evening. Scotty ate continuously, but not nearly so much as Juris and Bast. Excuse me. When the sun had begun to rise in the hills, its light reddening through the crystal walls of the tavern, Juris and Bast left to their rooms at the palace, granted to them diplomatically in lieu of an actual immediate audience with the Sylvanar. Scotty went to his room. He thought about staying up a little longer to ruminate over Juris's plans and see what might be the flaw in them. But upon touching the cool, soft bed, he immediately fell asleep. The next afternoon Scotty awoke feeling himself, again, other words, timid. For several weeks now he had been a creature bent on mere survival. He had been driven to exhaustion, attacked by several jungle beasts, starved, nearly drowned, and forced into discussions of ancient Aldemari poetical works. The discussion he had with Juris and Bast about how to dupe the Sylvanar into signing their contracts seemed perfectly reasonable then. Scotty dressed himself in his old battered clothes and went downstairs in search of food and a peaceful place to think. "You're up," cried Bast upon seeing him. "We should go to the palace now." "Now?" whined Scotty. "Look at me. I need new clothes. This isn't the way one should dress to pay a call on a prostitute, let alone the voice of the people of Valenwood. I haven't even bathed." "You must cease from this moment forward being a clerk, and become a student of mercantile trade," said Leotis Juris grandly, taking Scotty by the arm and leading him into the sunlit boulevard outside. "The first rule is to recognize what you represent to the prospective client and what angle best suits you. You cannot dazzle him with the opulent fashion and professional bearing, my dear boy, and it would be fatal if you attempted to. Trust me on this. Several others besides Bast and I are guests at the palace, and they have made the error of appearing too eager, too formal, too ready for business. They will never be granted audience with the Sylvanar, but we have remained aloof ever since the initial rejection. I've dallied about the court, spread my knowledge of life in the imperial city, had my ears pierced, attended promenades, eaten and drunk of all that was given to me. I dare say I've put on a pound or two. The message we sent is clear. It is in his, not our, best interest to meet. Our plan worked," added Bast, "when I told his minister that our imperial representative had arrived, and that we were at last willing to meet with the Sylvanar this morning. We were told to bring you there straight away." "Aren't we late, then?" asked Scotty. "Very," laughed Juris, "but that again a part of the angle we're representing. Benevolent disinterest. Remember not to confuse the Sylvanar with conventional nobility. His is the mind of the common people. When you grasp that, you'll understand how to manipulate him." Juris spent the last several minutes of the walk through the city expounding on his theories about about what Valenwood needed, how much, and at what price. They were staggering figures, far more construction and far higher cost than anything Scotty had been used to dealing with. He listened carefully. All around him, the city of Sylvanar revealed itself, glass and flower, roaring winds and beautiful inertia. When they reached the palace of the Sylvanar, Decimus Scotty stopped, stunned. Juris looked at him for a moment and then laughed. "It's quite bizarre, isn't it?" That it was. A frozen scarlet burst of twisted, uneven spires as if a rival sun rising. A blossom the size of a village, where courtiers and servants resembled nothing so much as insects walked about it, sucking its ichor. Entering over a bent petal-like bridge, the three walked through the palace of unbalanced walls. Where the partitions bent close together in touch, there was a shaded hall or a small chamber. Where they warped away from one another, there was a courtyard. There were no doors anywhere. No any way to get to Sylvanar but by crossing through the entire spiral of the palace, through meetings and bedrooms and dining halls, past dignitaries, consorts, musicians, and many guards. "It's an interesting place," said Bast, "but not very much privacy. Of course that suits the Sylvanar well." When they reached the inner corridors, 2 hours after they first entered the palace, guards brandishing blades and bows stopped them. "We have an audience with the Sylvanar," said Juris patiently. "This is Lord Decimus Scotty, the imperial representative." One of the guards disappeared down the winding corridor and returned moments later with a tall, proud Bosmer clad in a loose robe of patchwork leather. He was the Minister of Trade. "The Sylvanar wishes to speak with Lord Decimus Scotty alone." It was not the place to argue or show fear, so Scotty stepped forward, not even looking toward Juris and Bast. He was certain they were showing their mask of benevolent indifference. Following the minister into the audience chamber, Scotty recited to himself all the facts and figures Juris had presented to him. He willed himself to remember the angle and the image he must project. The audience chamber of the Sylvanar was an enormous dome where the walls bent from bowl-shaped at the base inward to almost meet up at the top. A thin ray of sunlight streamed through the fissure hundreds of feet above, and directly upon the Sylvanar, who stood upon a puff of shimmering gray powder. For all the wonder of the city and the palace, the Sylvanar himself looked perfectly ordinary, an average, blandly handsome, slightly tired-looking, extraordinary wood elf of the type one might see in any capital in the empire. It was only when he stepped from the dais that Scotty noticed an eccentricity in his appearance. He was very short. I had to speak with you alone, said the Sylvanar in a voice common and unrefined. May I see your papers? Scotty handed him the blank contracts from Lord Vannick's building commission. The Sylvanar studied them, running his finger over the embossed seal of the Emperor before handing them back. He suddenly seemed shy, looking to the floor. There are many charlatans at my court who wish to benefit from the wars. I thought you and your colleagues were among them, but these contracts are genuine. But those contracts are genuine. I'm sorry. Yes, they are, said Scotty calmly. The Sylvanar's conventional aspect made it easy for Scotty's to speak with no formal greetings, no deference, exactly as Juris had instructed. It seems most sensible to begin straightaway talking about the roads which need to be rebuilt, and then the harbors that the Altamari have destroyed, and then I can give you my estimates on the cost of resupplying and renovating the trade routes. Why hasn't the Emperor seen fit to send a representative when the war with Elsewhere began 2 years ago? Asked the Sylvanar glumly. Scotty thought a moment before replying of all the common Bosmeri he had met in Valenwood. The greedy, frightened mercenaries who had escorted him from the border, the hard-drinking revelers and expert pest-exterminating archers in the Western Cross at Falinesti, nosy old Mother Pascott in Havel Slump, Captain Ballfix, the poor, sadly reformed pirate, the terrified but hopeful refugees of Athe and Grenos, the mad, murderous, self-devouring wild hunt of Bendici, the silent, dour boatmen hired by Griff Malon, the degenerate grasping Bast. If one creature represented their total disposition, and that of many more throughout the province, what would be his personality? Scotty was a clerk by occupation and nature, instinctively comfortable cataloging and filing, making things fit in the system. If the soul of Valenwood were to be filed, where would it be put? The answer came upon him almost before he posed himself the question. Denial. I'm afraid that question doesn't interest me, said Scotty. Now, can we get back to the business at hand? Excuse me. All afternoon, Scotty and the Sylvanar discussed the pressing needs of Valenwood. Every contract was filled and signed. So much was required, and there were so many costs associated that addendums and codicils had to be scribbled into the margins of the papers, and those had to be resigned. Scotty maintained his benevolent indifference, but he found that dealing with the Sylvanar was not quite the same as dealing with a simple, sullen child. The voice of the people knew certain practical, everyday things very well. The yields of fish, the benefit of trade, the condition of every township and forest in his province. We will have a banquet tomorrow night to celebrate this commission, said the Sylvanar at last. Best make it tonight, replied Scotty. We should leave for Cyrodiil with the contracts tomorrow, so I'll need a safe passage to the border. We best not waste any more time. Agreed, said the Sylvanar, and called for his Minister of Trade to put his seal on the contracts and arrange for the feast. Scotty left the chamber and was greeted by Bost and Juris. Their faces showed the strain of maintaining the illusion of unconcern for too many hours. As soon as they were out of the sight of the guards, they begged Scotty to tell them all. When he showed them the contract, Bast began weeping with delight. Anything about the Sylvanar that surprised you? Said Juris. I hadn't expected him to be half my height. Was he? Juris looked mildly surprised. He must have shrunk since I tried to have an audience with him earlier. Maybe there is something to all that nonsense about him being affected by the plight of his people. Okay, so that was fun. I think that is quite true in sales. Generally, if you look like you don't want the sale, the customer will want the sale. Or if you're just not interested in the deal at all, it seems like it's not a big deal. And sometimes when you make a sell a big deal or trade a big deal, you you give a little bit of doubt to the customer about that trade. Okay, so thank you for the read, Mr. Gilneth. That's right. Okay, so let's exit Mr. Gilneth's shack and continue. It is beginning to be nightfall here in Seydanin. This
I will
is
listen out and work.
Aaron Linham. Okay, so what he says, well, hello, Jericho. I'm Aaron Linham. This is Seydanin, swamp fever capital of the world. I suppose you're wondering what's going on here. I can tell you where the services are. There aren't many, and I can tell you the latest rumors unless you've already hear them. Okay. Basically the same thing. Let's see if he knows a secret. Okay, so this one's different. Let's see. Daedra. You know what they are, right? Well, uh, Daedric shrines are where Daedra cults worship Daedra. Bad people who summon bad Daedra. Stay away from them. Why? Because Daedra are nasty, and the folks that worship them are even nastier. Okay. So are the Daedra demons or zombies or something? Obviously they're bad, and anyone summoning these things are nastier than the summons themselves. Okay. Let's ask them for a little rumor. I've heard that the local tax collector. Okay, so this guy is missing. We've got that already. And is this his shack here? This is his shack. I guess he's going to enter it here soon, or he's just standing outside of the his locked shack. Okay, this is Fine Mouth's shack. Okay, is this going to be? Okay, is this going to be somebody with some perhaps teaches some speechcraft or mercantile? Let's see. I'm Fine Mouth. Welcome to the scenic Seydanin, gateway to Morrowind. Are you looking for someone in particular, or do you just want a little advice? Oh, what is your background here? I am Fine Mouth. Okay. You just have a. He just has a really nice mouth. That's what everyone says. That's what everyone in town says. Okay, let's see what he has here. Some bloat. I don't think we've seen that one yet. Some scathe crawl. So he's got scales. Gaguti hide. Grave dust. Stoneflower petals. Okay. Hackle lowleaf, which has a value of 30 for a .1 unit. And some paper, the first paper we've seen. I believe it's the first paper we've seen. And he's got basket and gold and things of this nature. And a bedroll on a hard floor. So these people are quite poor. And one of those baskets again, but I believe this one is smaller than the one that we saw in Gilneth's shack. Okay, so he has the shack way in the back, which is probably pretty nice. And I mean, that would be a nice view to live at, but I would prefer I'd prefer a mattress rather than just a bedroll on the dirt floor. Okay, this is the last place we have. I believe this is the lighthouse. There are some more houses down that way, but we will end the video at this lighthouse here. Reading that book took a little longer than expected. I didn't know it was going to be 26 pages, but it was a nice story nonetheless. Okay, so this is the Lighthouse of Saint Anin, and this is the, I guess, the
Make it
proprietor.
quick, Outlander.
And her name is, she's a female Dunmer, and her name is the Ver Vedrano. Okay, so she's basically says the same thing. Serves a specific place, someone in particular. A little advice. She's happy to help. Um, Same options here. Let's see what happens if we try to persuade her here. Let's see how this works. Persuasion, we can admire her. Comment her, I guess. We can intimidate her, and I guess we tell her that we're. I don't know what we did intimidate about. I guess it's just a general intimidation. We can taunt them. Okay, that's interesting. We can taunt them to try to attack us. And we learned earlier. Let's see. This is why I enjoy taking my time with this. Um, is We learned earlier, I believe it was in the video last time, that one of the rumors or secrets, I guess, or advice was that if someone attacks you first, you have the right to, you have the legal right to either beat them down or just outright kill them. So if you taunt someone and they attack you, you can basically just stab them and end them, and I'm guessing you can loot them. Um, but we can also, there's also a an option to bribe them, bribe their liking to you. Okay, so let's see what happens if we give her a comment. I guess maybe about her earrings here. Let's comment her earrings. And she did not like that. Okay. She said, I'm busy that day. Sorry. Okay, I guess we asked her out. Okay, we commented her earrings and asked her to do dinner at the Arl's Trade House. Um, let's try something else. Let's try to intimidate her. See what she says. I guess we'll say something. I don't know. I don't really know how to intimidate people, so we'll just go with we intimidate her. And she said, "You're wasting your time. I won't be bullied." And that really brought us down by 12 points there on the like scale. Let's see if we try to admire her again, and she really does not like it. Keep it up and see how much I like you. Okay, we should get away from her before she attacks us, and we're not allowed in the lighthouse anymore. I was going to taunt her, but we'll do that with another character. I don't want to feel like getting beat here. Let's look at these tapestries here. Seems to be a tree in a forest, which and it's quite tall. Taller than what we've seen. Perhaps there were some in the starting area with the man who gave us the questions to pick our class. Perhaps there are some in there, but these are quite tall, and that would look nice, in a house if you really had something like that. But it seems to be a tree, and quite a abundant one at that, and some kind of woodland, I guess. She has bottles and eating equipment, and so there's some sultries there, some more stuff here. You got some alchemy stuff, it looks like, bottles, a little bit of gold, some eggs, sultress, baskets, household things like that, very common things. Here's a chest with a lock level of 25, so we're not going to get into that. Sometimes it's better just as a mystery as to what would be in that chest. And we have our second book here. Okay, and we got a barrel, nothing in there. Lantern, which is cool. I like, personally. I like lanterns. I just enjoy lanterns and lighthouses and things that have a light, I guess. Here's some grief. Um, Now, grief, when I think grief, and I'm guessing it's some kind of alcohol, that's probably what it is, which is a pretty good name uh, for the alcohol in this land, as in comparison to real world where alcohol does cause grief. Got some paper bread. Okay, so this one's called, and this has a value of $300 for this book. So it's quite an expensive and valuable uh, piece of literature. It's titled "The Wraith's Wedding Dowry," and our unarmored skill has increased to 21. Excuse me. Okay, let's go ahead and start this one. "The Wraith's Wedding Dowry" by Voltha Graham-Ward. Okay, let me see if this is quite a long one. You know what? I think I'm gonna end the video here, and we'll pick up on the Rafe's wedding dowry in the next video. Perhaps I could read it. I don't really know what my time is here, but I'm quite sure that it's got to be time to end the video. Okay, so yeah, join me in the next video, and we'll go ahead and continue our journey and of exploring Seydanin, and we'll go a little past Arl's trade house and see what those, I believe shacks are over there as well, what those people have, and we'll probably visit the Silt Strider and see what areas you can travel there. And like I said, I'm not too familiar with a whole lot of the game, just beginning areas and whatnot. But yeah, please join me next time, and we'll go ahead and we will read, what is it called again? The Wraith's Wedding Dowry. Alrighty. Thanks, guys.